And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the recipient of CSCMP's highest honor, the 2014 Distinguished Service Award. Mike Regan is described by industry leaders as an innovator in supply chain business and a tireless champion of a wide range of causes over the decades. He has been both a visionary and an evangelist for improved logistics performance by all stakeholders, including shippers, carriers, and intermediaries. Mike believes that collaboration among partners is a key factor in improving supply chains. He is a champion of innovation and creativity, cares deeply about the people in our profession, and has the ability to share his knowledge in ways that positively impact our community. Now, you're going to get a chance to listen to Mike here in a few minutes, but I also want to tell you, relative to that last statement, that if you get an opportunity, come back at 3:45 today and listen to Mike where he gets a chance to continue to talk about his passion around leaders in supply chain. It's called Lead, Follow, or Get Out of the Way. He co-founded TranzAct Technologies in 1984 to deliver state-of-the-art spend management solutions that enable shippers to plan and control transportation expenditures. By 2000, TranzAct had become the largest privately held freight payment company in the United States. Mike has received numerous awards and industry honors over the years and has spoken at educational seminars and conferences throughout the U.S. He's been a featured columnist in a wide variety of transportation and supply chain periodicals and has been involved in leadership organizations like the Young Presidents Organization, where he held the position of International Board of Directors. To sum it all up, his vast and significant contributions have left an indelible mark on our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to introduce Mike Regan, CSCMP's 2014 Distinguished Service Award recipient. Mike, I'm going to hand you the award.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Can I put it down?
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, great. I'm honored to receive this award, and a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I told them I was going to have a couple of minutes to formally express my appreciation to the organization. And when he heard this, he looked at me and he said, "Mike, how long does it take to say thank you?" And when he saw that I was seriously pondering that question, he said, "Mike, remember Caesar. He gave long talks and his friends killed him." So what I'd like to do today is to just briefly say thanks and help you understand why this particular award means so much to me. Like many of you, I've been to conferences and all, and one of the things I heard a while back was for a challenge to describe your life balance sheet. Not the financial stuff, but the assets that are near and dear to your heart. And for me, when I looked at my assets, the assets that are at the top of the list is my faith, my family, and my friends. So in expressing my appreciation and thanks to CSCMP and to the group here, I'd like to say thanks to God for giving me the talents and skills as well as the blessings that He's poured out. I'd like to say thank you to Jean and my kids. They have consistently encouraged me and been there throughout my career. And third, I'd like to say thank you to friends and mentors. This is one area where I am really honored as I look back and take a look at people like a Don Keel, who came to me in 1983 and said, "Hey kid, how would you like to start a freight payment company?" that ultimately grew to be TranzAct. A friend of mine that's here in the audience today, Gil Williams, has been a friend for over 30 years and has always been there. Pete Stiles came to me last year and said, "I'd like to submit this Distinguished Service Award," and did the work. And I could go on and on. People like John Fitzgerald, who's been a friend for many, many years, or Bud Lalonde, a great CSCMP member out of Columbus, the late Don Bowersox, and people like a Bob Buford, Ken Blanchard, a Doug Coe. I think you get the idea. There are a lot of people that have been there for me to say, "I believe in you, Mike," and encourage me to go on. And it's because of that faith, that family, and the friends that I've been fortunate to receive it. I would also say I'm very thankful that I grew up in a house where there was a lot of encouragement and love. Today is a special day for me. September 22nd, my mom passed away last year. And today, she would have turned 97 years old. And I'd periodically get a call from my mom, and she'd sing out, "I love you and don't you forget it. I love you and don't you regret it, baby." And I don't care at what time of the day you get that call, you cannot help but be encouraged. And for those of you that are wondering, did she really, if you heard the saying, if you can't say something nice, don't say something at all? That was my mom. If somebody would get on my mom's skin, under her skin, my mom's favorite saying was, "At least he breathes well." And so what I'd like to do in helping you understand why this award means so much to me is to encourage perhaps some of you out in the audience. CSCMP is a great organization. It's great because we have a wonderful leader in Rick Blaskin, and Rick has a fabulous team that does great work in Oak Brook. They're passionate about what they do. But beyond Rick and the staff, CSCMP is really all about its members. The people, as I walked into the audience, the hall yesterday, and saw people, as I see every year, volunteering at the registration desk, volunteering doing this, volunteering doing this. I've spoken, I think, at over 25 different roundtables. And at these roundtables, it's people who take the time. They get involved, and they understand what it means to make a difference. And that's what CSCMP, to me, is all about. The ability of each and every one of you in this audience to make a difference. Now, in saying that, I realize that some of you may be saying, well, okay, that's nice talk, and does he really mean it? I mean, can I make a difference? Maybe you pulled into this conference and you're a little bit, discouraged or whatever's going on. And if that's the case, I hope you'll be inspired by a story that was told to me as a kid, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. But for those of you that aren't, I'd like to have you remember David and Goliath. Goliath was this 9-foot giant that was taunting the armies of Israel. And he'd come out there, and he was a Philistine, and said, "Let's do battle for the land." He'd insulted God, he insulted Saul and armies, and the armies were afraid. They were fearful. There was a sense of trepidation. And up steps this boy, David, and says, "I'll take on Goliath." Now, if you were an odds maker back then, you'd have said David's chances of beating Goliath were about as good as the Cubs' chances of winning a World Series in my lifetime. That's for Rick Blaskin. But armed with 5 little pebbles, David went off and did battle. Saul tried to give him a coat of armor. David said, "I don't need it. I know what I'm doing." So if you're here today and you're facing some giants, whether it's a giant at work, perhaps there's some stuff going on professionally speaking. Perhaps there's some stuff going on personally. Maybe it's a health challenge or a situation with a family member or a friend. You pulled in here today and you're a little bit discouraged. Because you're a CSCMP member, I want to encourage you to remember 3 things that came out of this story for me about David. First of all, David was passionate. David was passionate. He was not going to stand there and accept the fact that Goliath was insulting God and insulting the armies of Israel. David wanted to do something about it. The second thing that came out of that was David was prepared. He had spent his life tending sheep for his father. And he had done battle with lions and bears as he protected the sheep. So the thought of facing his giant didn't deter him. And then the third thing was David was resourceful. I find it interesting that David went up and picked up 5 pebbles. These weren't magical pebbles that had been dropped from heaven. These were pebbles that everyone else had around him. And David was the one that said, "I can do something with these pebbles." So armed with his slingshot and his 5 pebbles, he went off to do battle with Goliath. And we all know what happened. Pulled the slingshot, hit Goliath in the head, ultimately killed him. What I've done is gone ahead and prepared some of these pebbles for those of us that are here at CSCMP. It says, "CSCMP, I make a difference." You can use it as a paperweight. You can put it in your pocket, perhaps. Just hold on to it when that thought of facing your giant comes up. And if you'll stop by our booth, I'd be happy to give you one. Just take it home. And just to close out this thing, to help you really understand what this means to me, what I'd like to have the audience do right now is we're going to do a little exercise that you can take with you. And I'd like to have you think about this over the next 3 days. If you listen to the people that came ahead, what is this? Cornerstone and connectivity. I'd like to have you stand right now. Would you join me? Just stand. Now, here's what I'd like to have you do. I've done this before, and we're going to have to do it a little bit different. But I want you to look around, look to the person you left, look to the person right, look ahead, look behind, but I want you to ignore them. All right? No, seriously. I want you to ignore them. Because, grab your iPhone, I don't care what you do. But ignore them. Okay, so go ahead, look around, ignore people. Go ahead, look around. Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that the person you've been looking for this entire conference, you haven't seen this person for years. I want you to imagine that that person is the person on your left or the right and back, and I want you to give them a handshake, a hug, I don't care. But let them know how glad you are to see them. Go ahead, do it. Ah, there's a lot of loving in the room. There's a lot of loving. Okay. We're not done. We got one final thing to do. One final thing to do. I want you to pick a partner. Pick someone right now out of this great group to the left, right, and back and front. Go ahead and pick somebody. Grab their hand. Grab their hand. Now wait. Keep holding their hand. I know that this is the most physical contact that some of you have had in a while, and you're really thrilled. But what I want you to do is I want you to look at that person in the eye, and I want you to say the words that my mom would say to me and my friends and mentor. Wait. I want you to look at that person and say, I believe in you. And I want you to look at that person and say, you can make a difference. I can make a difference. We can make a difference. That's the spirit of CSCMP, and that's why I'm honored to receive the award. Thank you very much.